So I recently had the opportunity to go on a family vacation to a cabin up near Blue Ridge, Georgia. The cabin was located on a river, so it was an opportunity for me to do some fishing from my kayak from a river. I've done a lot of fishing in my life, fishing from boats, from vessels, but I haven't done hardly any river fishing, and I definitely have never been in a kayak on a river fishing. So this was new to me. So I did what a lot of people probably do. I hopped on the internet and I started searching on how to fish in a river. So that's why I'm making this video. It's a river kayak basics, like 101 video, just to call out some things that really was helpful to me to know, and hopefully it'll help you and just get you the basics. And then, depending on how well you like river fishing, you can go to course 102. So one of the first things you're going to want to do is figure out what type of fish are in the body of water that you're fishing. I hopped online and did a quick search and found a wide variety of species in this river. I like fishing for bass. There were several species of bass, so that's really what I was going to target, and that's where I focused my research. What I found is that most of the tips and guides that I found about how to fish and fish a river and where fish like to hang out in rivers, it seems pretty universal, but really the area that I was focused on was for bass, but I think this translates across many species. The number one thing when trying to figure out where fish are in a river, it seems to be they're going to be in areas where there is less current. So you're going to want to look for areas where there's less current. This could be maybe above rapids and where water maybe is pooling before it heads down the rapids. That's a good place to target. Similar fashion, below rapids, maybe water's rushed through rapids and then there's a body of water where all that water is collecting, kind of a pool, where it's maybe a little more calm. That's another area to target. So those are things I was looking for. But the main thing is find areas where the water is not moving as fast. So I now understand kind of what fish are there and what I'm going for, where I'm going to look for them, but I really don't know anything about this river. I'm staying in a place I've never stayed before. I have a picture of it up here, and I'll splice this into the video, but this little dot here is actually where my cabin was. We had about maybe 50 yards of shoreline to put in. But what I would suggest is get an aerial view, some type of satellite view of the river that you're going to be on. For me, I could easily identify rapids. Pretty much all of this is rapids, and all of this is rapids. What that meant is this area here was not rapids. This is a nice kind of more still, less rapid, much slower current area, which was nice for me because I didn't have the ability to put in up the river and have somebody pick me up after I floated down for a few hours, a few miles later, or put in here and then have somebody pick me up downstream. That wasn't an option for me. So I had to paddle to and from wherever I was going to fish for this excursion. So due to that, even if you're going to put in up or down the river, you still want to kind of maybe scout out some areas to target while you're floating down the river. But this is kind of how I did that. So I found this area here. And I'll circle it here. That was really what I wanted to target when I was looking at the overhead view. So I found this body of water that has slower current. A few things you can look at when you're analyzing your aerial view. Areas in the river that are wider typically tend to have slower current. Areas in the river that are deeper might have slower current. Another thing, and this was really proven true for me, areas in the river where there's a bend, and you can see this water flows kind of here and then starts to make a slight left. But water here around this point moves a little faster, the current's a little stronger. I guess it's a shorter path for the water to have to travel, whatever it is. Water on the opposite side, this current was much less strong. It was much easier for me to be in my kayak and fish over here. So that's another thing to look for is bends in the river. All right, now here's a few tips and tricks that I think are good to know. Number one, I typically go out with a lot of accessories on my kayak. I've got a kayak box that has a lot of goodies in it, whatever. I'll take a speaker out to listen to some music while I'm fishing. I'll usually take more than one rod, and it'll be stored behind me in my kayak box, sitting upright. But for river fishing, I took a much different approach. I took a dip net stored in the back. I didn't even take my kayak box. I took one rod. I didn't even have it stored upright. I had it kind of hidden in the kayak because I didn't want it snagging on anything, on any overhanging limbs, etc. Because the current, in a still body of water, you pretty much control where you go. But in a river, a lot of times, if the current's strong or things don't go your way, you might end up going somewhere you didn't intend to go. So because of that, I didn't want my rod getting snapped off, on near the bank or under a tree or something. So I had my rod hidden in my kayak. I took my tackle bag. I took maybe a pad to sit on. I had my paddle and I had it tethered. So a tip is to pack light when you're going to be on a river. Pack only stuff that you don't care if you lose it, or if you do flip, that you have it configured in such a way that it's not going to be thrown into the water and lost forever. So that's a big tip. Having a lighter boat helps you maneuver as well. But for me, it was more of, hey, I just don't want to lose these things, so I'm not going to have them on my boat. The second tip, I mentioned tethers. You have to have a tether on your paddle. Have it attached to your paddle in a fashion that it's not going to come off, and then have it attached to your boat somewhere in a fashion that's not coming off, because you never really want to be without a paddle in any body of water, but in a river with currents, you definitely don't want to be in a situation where you don't have your paddle. So keep a tether on that. I had a tether on my dip net just in case, but the paddle's important. But tethers, securing anything to your boat, that's another tip. A third tip is I was glad my kayak came with an anchor, because that allowed me to kind of not fight current a lot, or not even the slow current, having to paddle back up the shoreline. I dropped an anchor in, and it allowed me to stay in the same place and fish a location that I was happy with. So I would say an anchor is a good thing, but also there's a lot of things to consider with an anchor. A lot of danger can be introduced when you're fishing or kayaking and using an anchor. I'm going to create a separate video just about some do's and don'ts with using an anchor with a kayak, some things that I've found that have been very helpful. So definitely look that up if you're going to be doing any kind of using an anchor with your kayak. But those are some tips. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. I think it's fun. It's not as enjoyable for me as just fishing a calm, still body of water, but it was definitely better than no fishing at all. So maybe you'll try it out, find some things that work for you, and you can leave a comment for me. Hey, try this next time, because I'm definitely looking for any good tips. Thanks, guys.